It's great to be here with you all. Just so I start my introduction. So, what I want you to do, that person that you just met, I want you to tell them what your favorite sauce is. Understand? My accent might be difficult, but your favorite sauce. Sauce. So in case you're wondering, my favorite is barbecue. I have one here with me. As Josiah said, it's full of a bunch of sugar and stuff like that. But I like the taste of it. And I actually have a story that I want to start with where barbecue sauce played a big part in this story. So a few months ago, Annalena was my wife. She was 8 months pregnant. She was 8 months pregnant. She was pretty ready to give birth. Our baby is now sat here, half falling asleep. But we decided we needed to go on one last date before we had a baby. One last date where the baby was still in the tummy and not next to us, wanting our attention whilst we're eating. So we had a little discussion, decided we wanted barbecue ribs. That's what we wanted to eat. So I did some research online. I was looking up for a good place for barbecue ribs in Krakow. And I found a place which claimed they had the best ribs in town. Now, I looked at the reviews, and they actually agreed with these people. They were the best ribs in town. So we decided, let's go to this place. We got there, we got our ribs. We were expecting these nice, juicy, sticky barbecue ribs. And we started eating them, and we were on our last date, so I wanted to make it seem like it was better than it was. But we were both a bit disappointed with these ribs. They were a bit dry, the sauce wasn't that great. I ordered more sauce. I thought maybe that was the problem. Maybe I just needed more barbecue sauce. It came out, and it still wasn't good. It was too runny, too peppery. But the thing is, people recommended this place, and then we turned up and we were disappointed. And I think we can all relate to this in some way or another. Josiah being from Texas, people recommend him Mexican places to go in Poland. And it turns out it's not quite what he's expecting compared to what he's experienced before. Maybe it's a movie that people have recommended to you, and you've turned up and you turned out disappointed. But the thing is that our experience determines what we see as good. So maybe for you, you've experienced better than what's been recommended to you. And these other people that are sharing about this thing they're recommending, these ribs, the best in town, they haven't actually, they're limited by their experience. They haven't been to Canada, where I've been, to my uncle's place, where he spends days preparing these ribs. They're marinating, they're cooking slowly, and then you eat them and they're covered in this sticky barbecue sauce, and they're amazing. But these other people have been limited by their experiences. So I want to open the Bible together. It's lunchtime really, but yeah. So we're in Acts chapter 8, and I want to talk about some people read about some people who had experienced Jesus. Just to give you a bit of background of what's just happened, there's a man named Stephen, and he had experienced Jesus, and he was sharing with others about his experience. And actually, it's quite a sad story in a way, because he ended up getting killed. So now there's a bunch of these other people who have experienced Jesus, they're part of the church. One of their friends has just been killed for sharing about Jesus, and now they're being persecuted, and they have to run away from their homes. So we can read from Acts chapter 8, verse 1. And Saul was there. He was there at the death of Stephen, and he was giving his approval. On that day, a great persecution broke out against the church at Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. Godly men buried Stephen and mourned deeply for him. But Saul began to destroy the church, going from house to house. He dragged off men and women and put them in prison. Those who had been scattered preached the word wherever they went. Philip went down to a city in Samaria and proclaimed the Messiah there. So we'll stop there for now. But what do we see? These are people who are in an awful circumstance. One of their friends has just been killed. They've had to leave their homes. But how do we see them respond to this? We read that they preached the word wherever they went. We read that they proclaimed the Messiah. And we're talking about life-giving. This is our series. We heard from Josiah last week about sharing our story with other people, sharing our experience of Jesus. And we can see with the early church, this is exactly what they were doing. It didn't depend on the circumstance. It didn't depend on their location. They'd had to leave their homes. It didn't depend on their safety either. They were being persecuted. One of their friends had just been stoned to death. They actually were making this a lifestyle. So I want to talk today about living a lifestyle of life-giving. It's nice, lots of life in those words, but we're going to live a lifestyle of life-giving, as we see these people doing here. Now, you might wonder, how do we do this? How do we live this lifestyle? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to receive life. So that comes from experience. These people in the early church, they'd experienced Jesus in one way or another. Some of them had been with him physically, and some of them had just experienced him through what others had said, or through his Holy Spirit, through miracles, through signs. So we need to be people who receive life. How do we do that? What we need to do is we need to go to Jesus. There's a few things that Jesus says which are really important here. The first one, he says in John chapter 10, he says that he came that we may have life in abundance, so that we may have life to the full. So when we think about other people who share their experiences, people who share about the best ribs in town or the Polish-Mexican restaurant, actually, they haven't experienced the best. They haven't experienced life to the full. If we look around us, people are looking for life in all different places. People are looking for life in relationships, in work, in entertainment, in ribs restaurants. But people are looking for life in all these different places. It's because they haven't experienced abundant life. They haven't experienced life to the full. Otherwise, they wouldn't be looking anymore. The next thing that's important about what Jesus says, it comes a bit later in the book of John in chapter 14. But he says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the life. Now, we're going to get into this a little bit, but I think we could spend hours on this. Because, again, people are searching for life, but they haven't found it. They're still searching. And that's actually because life is a person. Jesus says he is the life. So we have to come to him, first of all, to receive life. He says that we may have life to the full, in abundance. But even more than that, he is actually the life. Life is a person. God knew that we'd be searching for life in all these different places. People are spending so much time searching for places they get energy or for meaning, for purpose. But they're missing the point. Because life isn't only found in something, life is someone. Life is a person, it's Jesus. So to receive life, what do we need to do? We have to go to Jesus. We have to experience Jesus. We need to connect with Jesus. Practically, what does this look like? It means spending time with him. It means spending time praying and spending time in his presence and experiencing him, connecting with him. Like we see with the early church, like we see with these people. They were people where their circumstances were awful, but because of their experience, they had received life, and then as a result, they were then giving life to others. Another practical way that we can receive life is by reading the Bible, reading the Word. We read here, actually, they said that it says that these people were preaching the Word. So what is the Word? First of all, we can see we have a Bible, we have a bunch of words put together. But again, it's more than that, because the Bible says that Jesus is the Word. So we come back to this same place again, that we need to connect with the person, Jesus. And actually, when we read the Bible, it's life-giving. I've seen this recently. So my wife and I, we have a baby. She's called Fern, and she's 4 months old. And we started reading to her in the nights. We started reading to her before she goes to bed. We read the Bible. And most of the time, almost all the time, apart from last night, whatever she's doing, she stops when I start reading. So she'll be feeding, and then suddenly she's stopped feeding. She's looking directly at me and smiling. And I believe that actually there's such life in these words that she knows. Even as a 4-month-old, I believe that she knows in herself, in her spirit, that there's life in these words. Enough to stop her from whatever she's doing to listen to these words, no matter how much she actually understands them yet or not. There's life in the Word. Because the Word is a person, it's Jesus. So how do we receive life? We have to go to the person, to Jesus. Now, what about giving life? What does it look like to then give life to others? For me personally, I've seen in my life that actually it's about a mindset. So we can try really hard to give life to people around us, but I believe that I've seen in my life, actually it's more about my mindset than it is what I'm doing or how hard I try to give life to people around me. And the mindset change for me is to start seeing Jesus as the solution to all the answers in my life, or seeing him as the solution to all the problems in my life. It's like I have a decision to make. Am I just going to add Jesus onto my life, or instead am I going to find my life in Jesus? Am I going to try work things out myself, or am I going to go to him when I have a problem and see him as the solution? So with this mindset shift, to start seeing him as a solution to all my problems, then when people around me have problems, actually it's easy. I know this solution already, and it's not something that I have to force. It's just something that's natural to me because it's something that I'm living. So to give life to others, we need to change our mindsets. It's about a mindset shift to start seeing him, this person, Jesus, as the answer to the problems around us and the solution to the problems. So why do people around us share about all these different things? Why do people share about this restaurant that's actually not that great? Why do people share about these movies they've seen that they loved? Why do people share about this program or diet that they're on that is giving them so much energy? They do this because they see it as good. They've experienced something good in these things. And that's great. These things aren't bad. But the thing is that they haven't experienced the life. They haven't experienced the person. So, again, with my experience with the ribs restaurant, these people who were giving it good reviews, they may have experienced the best ribs in town, the best ribs in Krakow. And others who share about ways that they found life, they may have experienced the best that they know. But as people who know Jesus, we're not on that same level. We've experienced life to the full. We've been to Canada. We've been to my uncle's. We've been there when he's been preparing these ribs for 3 days and then cooking them over 24 hours. And then we get to bite into these things. And the meat just falls off in your mouth. They're covered in this sticky maple barbecue sauce. It's just amazing. It's just the best. We have experienced this. We have experienced abundant life, life to the full in Jesus. So why would we not share it? Why would we not share that with other people? It's a good question. So let's be people who do this. We need to receive life, and then we need to give life, to live this lifestyle of life giving. I think of it in a way of breathing as well. If you think about breathing, you have to breathe in. So you can all do this with me. Ready? We breathe in, and you breathe out. You can't just do one or the other. If I just breathe in and don't breathe out, I'm going to have a problem. You're going to have to come help me. But actually, we need to breathe out as well. So with life-giving, it's about breathing in, it's about receiving life, and then it's about breathing out. It's about giving life. So let's be people who breathe. If we don't breathe, we're going to die. So let's be people. Let's be people who breathe. I know, like, for some of us, one of these is more natural than the other, and that's okay. But I know there's been times in my life where I've been breathing in a lot and receiving a lot, but not giving out much. And then I see that I start to die. Because actually, we're built up ourselves when we give to others. It's more blessed to give than to receive. So if we're breathing out, if we're giving to others, we're actually built up ourselves. When we're talking to others about Jesus, when we're talking to them about what he's done in our life, then actually, again, it builds us up. It's almost like we're speaking to ourselves at the same time, reminding ourselves what he's done. And then when we're giving, when we're sharing about what he's done, it's speaking into their life that he can do the same for them. I have a friend in Belgium. His name is Yuri. You can try to say that with me. Yuri. Belgium. Close. Belgian. And his name is Yuri. So I met Yuri through playing football. And we were playing with the same team. And we started training together outside of our regular football training as well. And we were talking one day, and I found out he was going through some difficult times. He was going through battling with depression. He'd experienced a bad breakup some time ago. And he was without a job. He had to go to night school. But earlier that day, I'd met a man who was sharing with me how he shares life with other people, how he talks about how Jesus has done things in his life and how he talks about this with other people. So I'd receive from him. I'd receive life from him. And me and Yuri were training together. We're running about as you do for football training. And at the end, I just felt that I should share with him what I'd learned earlier that day, what I'd received earlier that day. And I was a bit nervous. I was going to talk to him, going to share about how Jesus had done things in my life and how he can do the same in his. And so as we were getting ready to leave, I said, hey, I want to share this with you. And I started sharing. I told him what the way that I learned to share it earlier that day. And then I waited. We just looked at each other. It's like, cool. Okay. And then we went off. And that was it. Nothing too significant. Obviously, my words weren't amazing enough to put him on his knees and cry out to God for forgiveness or anything like this. But he also didn't stone me. So something went well. Maybe in the middle, yeah. It's like a draw. So what I didn't know at the time is that God was also moving behind the scenes. So this is something I want to encourage you with, is that when you give life to others, God is also moving behind the scenes in ways that you can't even see. So what had happened is at his night school, he'd actually met some woman who was also getting to know some Christians at the same time. She was also hearing about Jesus at the same time. It's funny to me because God knew the way to Yuri's heart. He brought in a woman. And this is how he did it. So what happened, they started talking and they found out that they're both getting to know Jesus. They started dating, they both got baptized, and now they're married. So this is quite an amazing story of what God did. And what's amazing to me is that it doesn't really matter about what I did. It wasn't about my words. I just tried to breathe in and breathe out. I just tried to give life. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't like he was shocked by what I said. He just went home. But God was working behind the scenes. So how do we live this lifestyle? We breathe in, we breathe out, we receive and we give. And then we trust that God's working behind the scenes. We trust that God will confirm this in other people's lives. If we read on in Acts in chapter 8, you can read it later. I won't read word by word. But when Philip was proclaiming the Messiah to people, when he was proclaiming about Jesus and how he is the answer, how he's the one that was promised, when he's doing this, there were signs, there were wonders, there were miracles, there was healing, there was deliverance. God was confirming the message with action. God was doing this as he was giving out life, as he was breathing out. God was also moving. We can trust that God will do this as we give life to others as well. I love in verse 8, so kind of the end of this little story, in verse 8, that we see the result of life-giving. We see the result of what happened here. We can read that it says, so there was great joy in the city. So what's the result of living this lifestyle? The result is great joy. The result is great joy in these individual lives, but also in the community and in the city itself. The result of us all living this lifestyle here in Krakow is great joy in the city. So let's be people who do this. Let's be people who live this lifestyle. My question for you all today is, who are you going to give to this week? How are you going to breathe out? Who are you going to share with this week? A few weeks ago, we talked about being like Andrew. So you see there's these cards on the chairs. We talked about being like Andrew. And what did Andrew do? Andrew, he met Jesus, he experienced Jesus, and then he went and got his brother and introduced him to Jesus so he could also experience Jesus. So my question today is, who are you going to share with? We all wrote down people that we are going to be praying for. And I just want you to pray today for opportunity to share with that person. If you haven't written down a name before, just pray for opportunity to share with someone. Pray for opportunity to speak into someone's life, to share with them how Jesus has given you life and how he can give them life as well. And the result of this is going to be great joy. As we live together this lifestyle of breathing, of receiving and giving life, then we'll see great joy around us. So I want to pray.